Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. Today we are sitting down with a man who proved the impossible was actually possible. He was a doctor, a knight, and the first human to ever run a mile in under 4 minutes. Please welcome Sir Roger Bannister. Roger, it is such a thrill to have you here. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Thank you for having me. I suppose most people know me as the man who ran a bit fast around a track in Oxford back in 1954, but I always thought of myself first and foremost as a physician. I was a neurologist for many decades, and I often told people I'd rather be remembered for my work in medicine than for those 4 minutes on the track. But I'm happy to be known for both.
You certainly left a mark on both worlds. Let's go back to the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on March 23, 1929 in Harrow, which is in Middlesex, England.
And what was your given name at birth?
My full name was Roger Gilbert Bannister.
Was there a story behind your birth name?
Nothing too out of the ordinary, I'm afraid. It was a fairly traditional name for the time. My father, Ralph, was a civil servant, and life was quite structured.
What was your hometown like growing up, and what was your family life like?
Harrow was a pleasant suburb of London. My father worked for the Treasury, and we were a solid, working-class family. When World War II broke out, things changed quite a bit. We were evacuated to Bath to stay safe from the bombing. Bath was beautiful, and that's actually where my running really started. I used to run back and forth to school every day.
What kind of kid were you?
I was a bit of a dreamer, I think. I was studious and very curious about how the world worked. I wasn't naturally the most athletic boy in the room, but I had a deep sense of determination. I wanted to achieve things, and I found that sports gave me a sense of accomplishment that I craved.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
I always wanted to be a doctor. That was the primary goal. Athletics was something I realized I was good at, but the dream was always medicine. I wanted to understand the human body and the mind.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
Aside from running, I actually enjoyed rowing and rugby. In fact, at one point, I thought I might become a rowing crew member at Cambridge. I also loved my sciences, which paved the way for my medical studies.
What was your first job?
While I was a medical student at St. Mary's, I actually worked at the hospital. In 1946, I remember paying a fee just to run in Paddington Park near where I worked. Even then, I was balancing the white coat with the running spikes.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I don't know if I felt different, but I certainly had a different perspective on running. While others saw it as just a physical test, I saw it through the lens of a medical student. I was fascinated by the mechanics of it, the heart rate, the oxygen, the way the brain controls the body. I realized that the impossible barriers people talked about were often just mental hurdles.
What's a decision that changed everything for you but felt small at the time?
It was the decision to keep running after the 1952 Helsinki Olympics. I had finished fourth in the 1500 meters, and it was a crushing disappointment. I almost retired right then to focus entirely on medicine. But that loss gave me a new goal. I decided I wouldn't leave the sport until I tried for the 4-minute mile.
What was your biggest break?
That would have to be May 6, 1954, at Iffley Road Track in Oxford. The conditions were terrible. It was windy and raining. I almost called it off. But the wind dropped just enough, and with the help of my friends Chris Chataway and Chris Brasher as pacemakers, I hit that 3:59.4.
What were your biggest struggles before that success?
The biggest struggle was the sheer skepticism. Physiologists and experts at the time literally said the 4-minute mile was physically impossible. They said the human heart would explode. I had to use my own medical knowledge to prove to myself that the barrier was psychological, not physical.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Oh, after those 1952 Olympics, absolutely. I was exhausted and felt like I had let people down. But I'm glad I stuck with it for those 2 extra years.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel were essential to your success?
I had a very unconventional training routine because I was a full-time medical student. I could only train for about 45 minutes during my lunch break. I focused on high-intensity interval training. It was about quality over quantity because I simply didn't have the time for anything else.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I would have been a doctor. Fame was a byproduct, but medicine was my calling. I spent 60 years in medicine and only about 8 in competitive running.
What was your life like before fame?
It was very quiet. I was just another student at Oxford, riding my bike to labs and trying to fit in a run when I could. I liked the anonymity of it.
How did relationships change after success?
I met my wonderful wife, Moira, shortly after the record. When we started dating, she didn't know anything about athletics. She just knew me as Roger. I think that helped keep me grounded. We had a beautiful life together with 4 children.
Did fame bring happiness?
Happiness came from my family and my work as a neurologist. Fame was interesting. It opened doors, certainly, and allowed me to serve on the sports council and help build hundreds of sports centers in Britain, which brought me great joy.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
People tended to forget I was a doctor. I'd be at a medical conference talking about the autonomic nervous system, and someone would inevitably ask me about my shoes or the track at Iffley Road.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
That I was just a quote-unquote natural runner. I worked incredibly hard on the science of my training. Every step was calculated. It wasn't just luck, it was a clinical experiment.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
In 1974, I was in a very serious car accident. I broke my ankle quite badly, which ended my ability to run for fun. It was a difficult transition, but I poured that energy into my research on Parkinson's and the autonomic system. You have to adapt when the road changes.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My father for his work ethic, and my medical mentors who taught me that the mind and body are inextricably linked. And of course, my running mates, Chataway and Brasher. I couldn't have broken the record without them.
What was life like in your final years?
I lived a very full life in Oxford. Even after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2011, I stayed active in the academic community at Pembroke College. It was a bit ironic, a neurologist being diagnosed with a neurological condition, but I faced it with the same curiosity I faced everything else.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
I was still very much involved in the medical world, editing textbooks like clinical neurology. I wanted to make sure the next generation of doctors had the best possible resources.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away on March 3rd, 2018 in Oxford, England. I was 88 years old.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I actually sharpened my own racing spikes with a grindstone in the lab before the big race to make sure I had the best possible grip on the cinders.
What was your favorite food?
I always enjoyed a good, simple English breakfast. Nothing beats it before a long day at the hospital.
What was your favorite book?
I enjoyed many, but I spent a lot of my time with medical texts. However, I did eventually write my own, The First 4 Minutes, which I'm quite proud of.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Oh, John Landy, the Australian runner. We were in a race to see who would break the 4-minute barrier first. We eventually raced each other in the Miracle Mile in Vancouver later in 1954. He was a magnificent competitor.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't let the experts tell you what is impossible. The mind has a way of protecting us by setting limits, but those limits are often illusions. Use your brain as much as your body and never stop being curious.
Roger, this has been absolutely fascinating. Before we sign off, do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just that I hope people remember that we all have our own quote-unquote 4-minute miles to break. It might not be on a track, but whatever barrier is in front of you, it's usually just waiting for you to decide it's gone. Thank you for letting me share my story one more time, Calvin. It's been a delight.
Thank you so much for joining us, Roger. What an incredible journey from the tracks of Oxford to the leading edge of neurology. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.